Simon,
Ryan,
great to have you on, mate.
no problem, buddy. Thank you
Before
for
we get
having
into
me.
this, no, listen, always. We've been trying to do this for a bit, haven't we?
Yeah.
I'm just a bit busy. Before we get into it, why don't you give a bit of an intro? Who are you? And then obviously, what do you do?
Yeah, so Simon Johnson, commercial insurance account executive, basically. Risk management, pretty much. I work for a company called Clear Insurance Management. We were formerly Proactive, but we completed the sort of rollover of merger buyout in July 24, so rebranded to Clear. I said the name. We just want to be transparent with insurance because everybody sees insurance as a very black and white, linear. They take your money and they don't want to pay. It's so much more than that, and there's much more to insurance, especially insuring businesses. Home, motor, private stuff is very sort of clear cut. Can be done on the internet. It's very basic, but as you know, when it comes to commercial, it's a lot more intricate.
Yeah, it is.
And that's where we come in as a broker and a risk advisor more than anything. We're not salespeople. We're there to help guide you in getting the right insurance to suit your business and your budget, because ultimately that's what controls how far you can take your business, and we're there to help that grow with an insurance product that will support that as you move forward.
Absolutely. So we may as well dive straight into it then. One of the biggest sort of like laughable moments to us is not many clients are aware of insurance and, builders having it. You know what I mean? So they'll say, oh, Mr. Builder, can you just come and do this and whatnot? And they are completely missing the vetting period of, are you insured? So that's a quick, one for us. It's like, wow, I don't even ask these builders that question. Are you insured? That's one. But I suppose you'll be able to explain this a little bit more detail. What is insurance from a builder's perspective, and why should clients be asking for it?
Right. So insurance is a way of mitigating loss. So a loss is a financial or a physical loss. So they're how they're sort of categorized. Physical is if you cause damage to somebody's property. So you're doing an extension and you putting the roof tiles on the roof. So you've done the three walls, as it were, getting up to do the roof. You drop the tiles from the roof and it smashes and breaks their property. Could be Indian stone patio. It could be furniture, anything like that. You've caused a loss to them and your insurance is there to cover that loss. So nobody's out of pocket apart from the insurer.
Yeah.
Because generally your premiums are going to be a very small percentage of the potential loss. And that's how they calculate them. But that's an entirely different thing, which I'm not going to get into. Our premiums calculated. So that's what it's there for. It's to protect everybody's pocket. Yeah. Really. Because you don't want to have to pay out of the profit of the job to put something right because you've had an accident. Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what it is. A deliberate act will never be covered by insurance because it's intentional. You've done it on purpose. So that becomes a separate legal matter. But for accidents, it's what it's there for. It's so that, you don't have to cover it out of your pocket. The homeowner doesn't have to cover it out of their pocket. And that's what it's about. It's about making sure everybody's whole.
I've got a great one.
Go on.
This 2023 and 2024, I don't want to put it as a exact percentage, but I dare say 80% of the workload that we had at Create Properties was on repairing all the road tradesmen's work. I.e., road tradesman's gone in, said he could do the job. Yep. And I'm talking big substantial works, 100 grand plus. One of them was a £1 million project that we did. They've gone in and within the first valuation claim, first month, 100 grand's worth of work kind of thing. And clients decided, no, got to go.
Yeah.
where do clients stand if they've been, let's say, for example, you've got a client who's overseas and they've instructed a build team in the UK to do a job and they've lied about what they've done, been paid for it, and then they've done one. Where does the client stand if that build team had insurance?
So it all depends on each person's responsibility within the job. So you've got your property owner, investor who's based overseas. They're investing blind. So they're relying on somebody here to appoint the right people.
Yeah.
Now, this is where the construction industry does get part of its bad name for cowboys and things like that, because there's a lot of people who are in it for financial gain, and doing it the right way, getting the right team in place is imperative, because unfortunately there's no insurance recompress from the investor's point of view of getting money back other than seeking it through legal channels from the person that they've appointed. There's a lot of backhanders that happen. Large government contracts, everybody talks about conspiracies of they've got this job because they've greased the palms, or this MP's on the board of that company and things like that.
The brown envelopes are in.
Yeah, it happens, and that's when you see companies. Only a few years ago, massive companies, Carillion, huge contracting company, won contracts through relationships, which is how this industry works, but it was the wrong kind of relationships, took on more than they could chew. But then obviously a lot of their workforce was outsourced.
Yeah.
So they went pop, protected their shareholders to a certain extent. And then it's the smaller firms that get impacted more. And that's where we see the cascading effect. Everybody can lose a large contract. So there's quite a few of them about. So if one pops, there's somebody else who can step into the fold. But yeah, it's moving down the chain that it impacts. With regards to suing people for the financial loss, if you've got a project manager in place, they should have something called professional indemnity. And that covers for errors and omissions and, negligent acts and things like that. So financial loss would have, they'd be able to pursue through that method. But where contractors have then come in, been appointed by that person, done a substandard job, that's unfortunately uninsurable. You can't insure against bad workmanship through, purposely using substandard materials. It's financial gain. They're literally cutting corners to make more money for themselves.
Well, I think there's not just the cutting corners bit. Hiring a rogue tradesman is hiring a rogue tradesman.
Yeah.
Now, I always look at this from a sort of like a backbench perspective. And I you see him rant on LinkedIn, you see him rant on Facebook, and these things do happen, I get it. But it's never a clean cut, it's their fault or it's a rogue tradesman's fault, because hang on a second, you hired that rogue tradesman.
Yeah.
So you need to take some responsibility. Even if it's 1%, you did all the checks, you still hired them. It's like being in a car accident, isn't it?
Yeah.
You still put the key in the ignition and you still press the accelerator.
Yeah.
So you still carry a percentage of that blame. Now, when it comes to sort of like a rogue tradesman, for example, if you're, and I keep this relevant to us and our listeners, right? If you're a property investor, or if you're, just someone who's not in the construction industry and you've not actually got that much knowledge, so you're looking to hire a builder, the biggest piece of advice we give is get a professional who can do this on your behalf. That small fee, and it might be small, I know it might seem, a few £1,000s, but it's such a small fee compared to the losses that you can sustain by hiring a rogue tradesman.
Yeah.
But you can delegate the full responsibility, and I use CDM as the framework, the CDM regulations. Use that as your safeguarding, protecting. So insurance purposes, you could say, hey, I'm the idiot in the room here. I'm going to delegate all risk and responsibility to the professional indemnity guy or woman and say, you're responsible. This is what I want to achieve. This is the end goal kind of thing. And this is how kind of what it looks. Can you just make that happen? If a client did that, where do they stand on losses?
So in essence, on that basis, you've got several people again in the chain, because as you guys as create, you have several arms to your business.
Yeah.
So you have an arm of the business which can act as a QS in that essence of, we'll come in, we'll be a project management, and for that we insure you with a professional indemnity policy.
Yeah.
Because then if you do make any errors, there is cover there so that your client isn't at a loss. But then obviously as that, we also, so create professionals, appoint create properties to carry out the work.
Yeah.
Again, another insured professional outfit. And that's the key thing. But also what we tend to find is recommendations and references and things like that, especially with contractors. If you want to get onto any insurer's repairer list, and you'll never get a rogue trader on an insurer claim.
Yeah.
Because you have to jump through so many hoops, as you know, to get on that list,
Not
to
half.
be an approved repairer. Everybody thinks you make fudge. You're not. You're screwed down on your labour rates.
Absolutely.
You're allowed very, very minimal markup on your parts, but it's more about a consistent channel of work coming through that enables you to do that. Where you get rogue trader or in bad work from insurance jobs is where the homeowner appoints their own tradie.
It is, we see it all the time.
Yeah, and that's where you'll come in, and the insurers, as horrible as it sounds, are not responsible for picking up that tab. And that's where if you appoint your own trader, you're taking what the class as a cash in lieu settlement.
Yeah.
So here's your money.
But you've got
it's
responsibility.
your problem now. And they're doing what insurance is all about, which is transferring the risk. If you allow your insurer to appoint the tradesman, you are getting that guarantee that if it goes wrong, your insurer is going to pick up the bill for putting it right. And that's the key thing. And with you guys working in the way that you do on not only the insurance work, but on the other side of it is you have each step covered. So you've got your CDM side of it. So you provide that protection to your customer.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what insurance is, just a protection, be it from physical or financial loss. And that's what you guys do. And your business model is why it works.
Listen, we get it. I mean, it's easy from our perspective when we're talking to clients and say, hey, look, I know it looks like an additional expense. However, think of the expense if something went wrong. Now, we're transparent. It would be easy for me to say to client, look, we know what we're doing. Go with this. You're not going to get screwed over. We're genuine. We're bona fide. We're insured. We've got years in the industry. We go through awards. We're very credible. We do what we say we're going to do, right? And that's important, and we will ensure that we do a good job. But yet, we still offer this because it's a peace of mind that actually when you get on a job, your costs are going to be exact. You're going to have very minimal changes.
Yeah.
You're going to finish on time. And that's the sort of protection of having the both. Let's discuss the types of insurance, because insurance just isn't insurance, is it?
It's a minefield.
It is a minefield.
It is a minefield.
Let's try and keep it sort of like narrowed into to construction and build then.
Yeah.
So if you're let's say for example, because I mean we've just done our policy renewal, right?
Yep.
And there's a lot of stuff to go through, and this is the importance of why we use Simon. We have this interaction, we go through it in detail, and we ensure that we've got what we need to get the right cover before we go and get insurance.
Yeah.
It's not like just clicking online and going tick, 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 because we're not experts in the field.
Yeah.
So we rely on Simon for that expertise. So let's go, in terms of like insurance, I'll let you go for it, so I know, because it's just too messy. If you're a client who is equally not educated in what insurance should I be asking for, why don't you give us a couple of summary headings of what types of insurance that contractor should have within their outfit?
Right. So we're what we call an advisory broker. So there's two types of insurance brokers and insurers in the UK, and that's non-advisory, who will literally take word from you of what you want to cover or what you think you need to cover, and they will literally provide a price for that. They will make no recommendation, no discussion surrounding what your activities are and things like that. They will literally, you say, we want public liability, employers liability, and contract works. You tell them exactly how much, that's all they provide. What we do
Wait there. We need to stop. That's dangerous.
Yeah, it is.
Because let's say this from a client's perspective. If you hire a construction company who's gone for that avenue of insurance,
Yeah.
who there is policing that they've asked for the right thing?
Nobody. And
That's dangerous.
It is dangerous. And my personal opinion, the only policies and products that should be available to purchase online is your car, your van, home, and travel insurance.
Yeah, but they're protected and they're policed.
They are, because there's very limited amounts of what can go wrong on those effectively. Yeah. So you need to have minimum third-party liability to drive on the roads of the UK.
Yeah.
Right? You then have the option to increase cover to cover your own damage. If you damage your car, do you want it covered? Yes or no?
It was policed by DVLA and actually the Majesty's Finest.
Yeah.
So it's policed that.
From a legal perspective, not a protection perspective. So you've got the legal requirement of minimum to drive, and do you want to cover your own vehicle if it gets damaged?
Yeah.
Yes and no. They are so closed questions, then that's what you should have. Buildings, now, a lot of buildings, home insurance now offer blanket cover, so you don't have to know what it's going to cost to rebuild your house.
Yeah.
A lot of insurers will provide a blanket cover of up to £1 million, say, and they'll do the same on contents. And we by doing that, you eliminate underinsurance. And underinsurance is a massive, massive issue in this country.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
We're going to go on that one,
cover.
on your commercial, because that's where we see it more than on personal.
Wow.
So they're the only four products that should be available to buy online, because your tradesmen, decorators, joiners, plasterers, brickies can go online and get a policy for £80 a year to cover £1 million of public liability. Public liability covers damage or injury to third-party persons or property. So builder comes into your house, breaks something, it's not done it on purpose, it's a breakage, it's a loss, it covers that. It doesn't cover the workmanship. So, but you can get £1 million of cover for £80 a year, right? And as a painter and decorator, right, you can earn £60,000-70,000 a year, right? And it's cost you £80 for £1 million worth of cover. Now, that won't say or ask on there really, what are you decorating? Are you decorating an office? Are you painting the outside of a building? So it's not asking about working at height, for which there is regulations. Using a ladder, you have to do a risk assessment.
Yeah.
And these are all the questions that should be asked, because the only time you find out whether an insurance policy is worth its salt is when people need to make a claim.
A claim, yeah.
And that's where the industry gets such a bad reputation, because a claim hasn't been paid. Well, that's because the information the insurers have had hasn't been correct.
Wrong level. And let's get this straight. That's because the individual who's asked for the cover has been allowed to go for something that is it unregulated? What's the right terminology?
It is regulated, but it's unsuitable.
Unsuitable. So that's a non-advisory company.
Yeah.
Wow. So let's just put a little example here. Homeowner, innocent homeowner who's uneducated, not insurance or not in construction, could hire a road tradesman without knowing.
Yeah.
He could flash a policy in their face.
Let's just get one thing clear as well on things like check a trade.
Oh, no. Okay.
Right? So everybody thinks check a trade is a great thing because it's got a list of tradesmen who have met a certain criteria.
Yeah.
right? The criteria is that they pay a fee to be on there, and they have to provide evidence of an insurance policy.
So they have to provide a level of evidence of an insurance policy.
Yeah.
Does it define what that policy contains?
Public liability.
Is that it?
That's it. Doesn't state a particular level, but all they have to do is provide a copy of the schedule, because you don't actually get a public liability certificate anymore. But the problem you have there is that is done once a year for the renewal of the membership. Now,
Is that policed so they could cancel it like after a month?
Yeah. So they could literally take the policy out, get the document, cancel the policy the day after to get a refund, but they're still going to show on Checkatrade that they've passed the requirements to be on there.
Checkatrade, you need to sort something out here.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, you know what I mean? That's why whenever I'm looking for a tradesman at home for anything, I will go on things like social media.
Yeah.
And I will ask for recommendations. People who've had a roof replaced. I mean, I insure lots of roofing companies, right? So normally my first port of call for any major job is one of my own clients.
Yeah.
Because I know all of my clients.
You know they're not getting claims against them.
Yeah, I know the work.
It's a perk having your job.
It is. It really is. We get an inside knowledge on certain things. You know, sorry if you're one of my clients and I never call you. You know why?
Should have been there first.
So the due diligence is the key part of it, and that's what your homeowners should be. Well, not just homeowners, your investors and things like that. I mean,
well, wait there. So because there was two, and I stopped you at one, right? That one is non-advisory policy, where if a homeowner could be flashed a policy in FS, hey, we're fully insured.
Yeah.
Fully insured, what does that mean? Homeowners need to be breaking that down. What do you mean by fully insured? So let's go quickly through the category of what fully insured should look like, and then we'll go over to the second one.
The advice side. Right, so there is no such thing as fully insured.
Oh my God.
Okay, so fully insured would mean...
Well, that'd mean car, pet, house. I mean, where do you stop with fully
exactly.
insured?
So, but not only that, there is also an element of a deductible, so an excess on any policy. So fully insured would mean that an insurance company would pay out the full amount of any claim regardless. And you can't do that. So all these advertisements for businesses that say they're fully insured do not understand the insurance part
Quickly
of it.
Checking our website
right.
for fully insured.
So
What would the terminology be then? Correctly insured.
So just insured. So we are insured, because technically, if you've bought an insurance policy, you are insured, but it needs to measure up that you're insured for the work and the job that you're doing, and that's the key element. Anybody can take out a policy and buy it for public liability, which covers third-party property and damage. If it's a limited company, they should also have employer's liability, because employer's liability is the only legal requirement away from motor in this country.
So public liability, employer's liability.
Yep. So they're the two
Main
liability aspects.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that cover other people.
Yeah.
So public liability covers you or I as the homeowner taking on this person if they cause damage.
Yeah.
Not if they do bad work. Employer's liability is if their people are injured on site.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the workmen, isn't
that's
it?
the work. That's the
work people.
Yes. That's the labour force.
That's the one.
We'll call them. And then moving on from that, so a builder doing renovations and extensions should also look for what they call contract works.
Yeah.
And that covers the actual build stage up to sign off of the work and the materials.
Yeah.
So you'll know yourself, if you're doing a large extension for somebody, you'll get paid in stages.
Yeah.
So homeowner will pay you a deposit initially, which will start you off on ordering materials or foundations, labour, and covering that initial stage. Get to a certain point, they'll pay you again for the next stage, say it's 2, 3, or 4 stages. Once they've made those payments, they've paid for it. So if something were to happen, a fire, damage, storm damage, things like that, they don't want to pay for it again.
Yeah.
You've had the money, you don't want to pay for it again. And the contract works does that. It picks up that damage to rectify the loss.
Yeah.
So it will cover part of the demolition,
Yeah,
to take it back to where you can start again. And it covers those start again costs.
just a quick one on that. For any Mythbuster questions that might come later down the line, if a product has been, so let's say on the same analogy what you've got there, been instructed to do works, client's paid that deposit payment, and then contractor's gone out, acquired the material, and they've been delivered to site, not installed. They've now been delivered. Natural disaster happens, or be it theft or fire or flood, whichever. Flood's relevant right now in the UK. Let's say those said items then become damaged or disappear. Are they insured although they've not been installed?
Yes, because the moment they've been delivered to site, they are covered by the contract works.
And you've heard it here first.
Yeah, and that's the key thing. But on top of contract works, you can also add on different extensions to that. So plant insurance. So the contractor's plant on site.
Employers, public, we've got contractors, and now we're on plant.
Yep. So you've got works, and then you've got plant, and that is own and hired in. So
they're split into two.
They are separated because with insurance, it's all down to insurable interest. And when you hire something in, if you're hiring it from a hire company, they will offer you their insurance. They tend to come with a higher excess and a premium that goes with it. Or you can have your own hired in plant policy. Now, if you're only hiring 2, 3 items a year, take it from the hire company. Okay. Chances are, like a hire car, they'll be able to offer you an excess waiver as well.
Absolutely, which don't cover waiver. We've been there.
So, do you know what I mean? It's there. If you're hiring plant regularly and you're spending money hiring plant regularly, I would say over £5,000 a year, take out your own hired in plant policy. They start from £500 a year, depending on how much you hire and the value of what you hire. But it protects you because, one, they'll tend to have a lower excess. Yeah. They will have wider cover and less restrictions than the hirer's policy. But they will also pick up the continuing hire charges because the hire company will continue to charge you until they get a replacement item that they can hire out again. Because they're effectively losing money because they can't do it. So your insurance company will actually pay those continuing hire charges. But normally you'll hire under terms called CPA, Construction Plant Association. So they actually limit your exposure and that as well. So there's a maximum that the hire company can charge you and the maximum terms that they can impose. So it's a great all-round protection, insuring yourself, but only if you're regularly hiring plant.
Well, I think it's... So on plant, any more on plant?
Yeah, so you've got your own plant as well. So if you've got...
So that'd be under plant, wouldn't it?
That'd be on that, yeah. So plant is split into 2 parts. Hired in, which is obviously not owned.
And then your current stock.
And then your plant. So that would be any mechanical, self-propelled or mechanically propelled plant. So things like whackers,
whacker plates,
steel saws, things like that. Not so much hand tools, drills, saws, things like that, because they're what we consider a disposable item. They have a shelf life of use. Generally, a joiner will replace his drills once every 2 or 3 years because they get the use out of them. They don't work like they used to because they don't make them like they used to. They're made to be replaced. So
we always want the new toys anyway, don't we, as tradesmen?
Of course you do. It's like me with a phone, isn't it, or a laptop. I have to have the newest. So they're your main contractors, all risks, section, as we'll call it.
Yeah, so we umbrella that, don't we? And call it contractors all risks insurance.
Because we've got the liabilities, we've got the property, and we've got the build, as it were.
So on that basis, on that first option there,
Yeah.
a client would, the first thing they need to be asking is, have you got, have you asked for
Yeah.
an advice-based insurance
Yeah.
or not?
Yeah. What insurance do you have? So I'm insured, right? What insurance do you have? What does it cover?
Yeah.
How does it protect me?
So by flashing a policy saying we're fully insured in
Yeah.
a client's face, they should not be thinking peace of mind right now. They should be digging further into it.
Yes. Yeah. Due diligence.
Due diligence. Right. So let's go over to the second one.
Yeah.
Right. You talk us
Advisory.
through it. The advisory.
The
What is
advisory.
the biggest difference?
The biggest difference is we ask the questions. So, and we ask the questions that you won't be expecting.
Oh yeah, you do. Inside leg.
Yeah. So my first thing when I sit down with any new client is I will sit there and let them do what they love doing, which is talking about them and their business, because that's their passion. They don't do it for any other reason that, it started out as a passion.
Yeah.
And now it's gone to something, it's an animal now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So they have to nurture it and allow it to grow. So I'll sit there and I'll say, tell me about you. Tell me about your business. And all I'm doing there is I'm listening. And that's the key thing, is listening, because you're telling me about your passion and what you do and things like, and a £5 million executive home development, you don't get there straight away.
No.
So
No, you don't.
do you know what I mean? I'm just listening to what you say. And then from that, I'll jot down keywords, which will then trigger me to ask you a question. And it just comes as more of a conversation.
Yeah.
And that's how we sort of work. But we're looking at risk management and risk transfer, which is on an advisory basis, is what we're about. And I've said this to you before, I can insure absolutely everything. Everything down to and I will charge a premium for that. Every section of cover has a cost, and that cost is the premium. But there is elements that you will not need to insure or want to insure.
Yep.
And that is self-insurance, and it's risk transfer. If you can afford the loss and stand that loss, don't insure it. Don't pay a premium for something that you're not ever going to make a claim against.
Yeah.
Right? What you can't afford to replace and what is business critical that it is rectified and reinstated as soon as possible, transfer your risk to an insurance policy. And that's what we do. We look at your risk as a whole through those conversations and asking those questions. Developers. So your site at the moment, it's had some delays.
Yeah.
Which have been beyond your control. But those delays have had a knock-on effect, because when we set the policy up originally for it, it had an 18-month plan.
That's right.
So from breaking ground, which is when we should insure from, because at that point, we then start to have financial loss if something happens.
Yep.
From breaking ground to building control sign-off.
Completion done.
Completion, 18 months. 5 properties, not a problem. That's the normal. Within there, we've had bad weather, issues now.
Yeah.
At the moment, it's underwater.
Yeah.
Part of the
now,
site.
Yeah.
So you can't work in those situations. But for every point of time of your 18-month original term that insurers have worked on, that's where our communication, and we speak every month, is how's this going? That's an advisory service. So us checking in is not just saying, how you doing, Ryan? Do you fancy a coffee? Being polite, stuff like that. I'm sort of garnishing information from you for an insurer, so I can make sure that your policy is kept as up to date as possible, so that in the event that something did happen, we're never going to have that issue of a claim not getting paid.
Let's do an example. So we're here today. We're having our we had a meeting before this.
Yeah.
We had an insurance review meeting before this, and we had a couple of questions. We had same project. We had like 18-month original planned.
Yeah.
We had a delay on it through financials. So part of the sort of like requirements from the bank was for us to have over £500,000 worth of equity in that.
Yeah.
So we started the policy, we started building, but it was our money.
Yeah.
We then went through. The bank then took an obscene amount of time to obviously get the funding released to us.
Yeah.
We still had to pay insurance for that delay.
Yes.
And obviously our funds dried out. We were like, hey, look, we're waiting now for the bank to release these funds so we could continue building, but obviously we start to be insured. That communication was happening, like I said, monthly updates, nice and easy. Whilst we had our meeting today, we was just discussing, hey, this is what's just happened on a different job. You know, it had a fire damage, it was nothing to do with us. We've been asked and we've been instructed to rip the old charred timber off and then put a brand new roof on. But while that's currently happening, next door might have had a bit of water ingress, but it's happened because they've removed a section of the party wall in a mid-terrace building. Well, again, because the client's then not as educated in that industry and their knowledge, the builder who removed that party wall should have had the liability for that. They've now asking questions on, hey, who's going to pay for my little bit of damp stains? You know, and I think the benefit of having you guys as part of that, the number two, if you want, from my perspective, is that we can ask those questions, and then you realise, well, actually, there is no risk from our perspective because we've done everything that we should have done.
Yep.
And equally, it was already, a water house before we even got there.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but I suppose that's the biggest, selfishly from us, that's the peace of mind we get. But from a client who might be listening to this, one of the biggest things that they should be taking from this is actually that you have got an expert making sure that their project is specifically looked after.
Yes.
Not just one carte blanche policy, got it right this time, carte blanche policy covering everything. Because from a client's perspective, and this is what we see all the time, they only care about their job, and rightly so.
Yeah.
But they need to ensure that the insurance is actually right from the build team who are coming in to work on their project.
Yes.
You know, I know it's not the client's responsibility to look at what the builder is other projects are looking like.
Yeah.
But it is ridiculously important that they ensure that their project is rightly insured.
Yes.
And that's what we get with security from you guys.
And that's the thing, and that's why I say with advisory, I would always recommend any commercial business owner speak to a broker, but don't just pick a broker out of the phone book. Speak to your business associates.
Yeah.
Ask them who they deal with. And in construction, you know, especially around this area, we deal with, and we act for, and have done for a long time, a number of the large players who do new build developments.
Yeah.
They do executive renovations, shop fitting, everything like that. They all have the same thing in common. They all need contractors all risk insurance.
Absolutely.
And that's the key thing. Anybody can go online and buy a public liability policy. And to be fair, when Simply Business launched, it was a pain for us, but it also highlighted the importance of a broker. So,
yeah, because initially from a tradesman's perspective, it was amazing.
Yeah.
You could get a policy within minutes.
Yeah.
And it was, like I said, 80 quid.
Yeah.
I've got an insurance policy. So now I'm fully insured.
Yeah.
It cost me 80 quid, whereas these guys over here trying to cost me a fortune. Well, I've got one for 80 quid here.
Yeah.
Wow, how wrong was I?
You know, as working for insurance companies and the loss adjusters and claims management companies, they send you each year an insurance questionnaire.
Yeah.
I know, because you send it me. And we have to fill it in with information of your policy limits, your policy numbers, your expiry dates, and any inner limits and endorsements, especially with regards to working at height, working at depth, if there's any exclusions with regards to working with heat, or what the terms are of working with heat and things like that. Now, Simply Business, you could go on, I want public liability and I want contract works, and you could add on £100,000 worth of contract works, right? Now, the problem with the online policies is that's your maximum exposure.
Yeah.
So if you've got 3 extensions on the go, one at 60,000, one at 30,000, and another one at 30,000, you've actually exceeded your 100,000,
She's done.
right? So if you have a claim at any one, insurers' first line of defense is a loss adjuster, and they ask the questions, and
It's detective.
they are. They're highly trained professionals.
How do we get out of this?
Right? It's not only they know about the building industry, they've spent a lot of time. A lot of them are retired QSs.
Yeah.
So they know about quantifying a loss and how much it should cost to rectify this. But then they'll throw in, how many other projects have you got on the go? As part of conversation.
Yeah.
And they'll garnish information without you even realising. And then they'll say, claim rejected.
Done.
So why? Because you're underinsured. Because you've said you're only working on projects up to 100,000. Well, I am. It's only 60. Yeah, but you've got several others which take you over that limit.
Do you know what's mind-blowing about this? Builders are trained and trained in how to build.
Yes.
They are not trained on what to insure and how to insure something. So what you'll find is, I know this because I've got a lot of mates in the industry as well, and they are massively uninsured.
Yeah.
And when you tell them, listen, mate, you need to go and get fully insured, go and get some proper insurance, go and get advice insurance. They'll be like, what's the point? Why would I waste that money? I'm never going to have a claim. And you're like, oh my God, you're running risk. But then the flip side of the coin, you've got clients equally who are, again, they're not trained in insurance and exposure and how to ask the question. You can't blame them.
No, and this is where I think the industry fails you in that respect, is because you're trained how to do your job. You for an electrician to work on 3-phase electrics, you have to go to college for 3 years.
Get your tickets.
Get your tickets and things like that. Those people in the position of teaching you, covered by a professional indemnity policy.
Yeah.
Because if they teach you wrong and you do something
they're
wrong,
up against it.
Then hang on, this is the way that I was taught, and they qualified me to do it.
Yeah, but they're testers. They've got to sign off who designed it, who installed it, and who signed it off.
Exactly.
Everything's listed and policed there.
And they're taught how to do all of that. Why aren't they taught the purpose of insurance?
Yeah. Well, it's quite interesting because them and gas installers, who are the two biggest sort of trades, if you want, in terms of compliance and policing compliance policy, things like that, they should have a level of, when you're doing this, you need to have that level of cover.
And this is the thing, right? You'll never get an unqualified, or you shouldn't get an unqualified sparky or gas engineer working for themselves, right?
Here's one. Do you know how many that do?
I know. That's why I say you shouldn't.
People would have no idea.
Yeah.
And a quick mythbuster. I know a ridiculous amount of tradespeople that will go and sign off a job, but their mate will sign it off on their behalf and they'll give them backhander.
Yeah, they don't. They've never even been there.
Never even been there.
But on the flip side, you get MOT certificates for cars when they've never been anywhere near the garage. It happens, and that's the corruption that causes the bad name for cowboys and rogue tradesmen. Everybody gets tarnished with the same brush. I mean, I had a phone call driving here for our meeting today from my brother-in-law. Right, he's having a new kitchen fitted, so he's ordered the kitchen from a place not too far from here in West Yorkshire, and he asked me for advice on a kitchen fitter. Right. So I'm going to fit a kitchen. So I said, well, the guy who did ours, I did my due diligence. I got references from people that he'd worked for before. Yeah. And his standard of work, I had no complaints with. Yeah. Did mine. He did it how he said he was going to, when he said he was doing, and for the price we agreed. Bob. Right. No issues, no complaints. Insured? Insured, right? Now, I recommended him as a, this is who I used. Yeah. I did my due diligence. Brother-in-law phoned me up. Do you know how much he's quoting me? I says, Dave, if you're spending X amount of thousands on a kitchen, right, and you've bought that kitchen, so you've had it designed, it's a supply-only company that do it, but the quality of the products are phenomenal. Premium now. Yep.
Get a premium installer.
Exactly. Get somebody who knows the quality of your materials to install it, because they'll put an element of care into it. And I'm sorry, to me, that comes at a price.
Well, of course it does. It's like getting, I don't want to say price here, but it's like getting a mechanic who works at your local garage
Yeah.
and then chucking him on F1 pit team.
Yeah.
It's just never going
It's
to
not
happen.
going to happen. It's not going to happen. So,
sources for courses. So, yeah, you're going to get a bit of a premium there.
Yeah.
But I bet he's I shouldn't say fully insured now. This is a new one.
He's
I bet
insured.
he's adequately insured.
Yes. And that's the thing. There's no such thing as fully insured, but there is having adequate and sufficient insurance to cover the risk you carry, as it were.
Do you know what blows my mind as well? And again, this is not necessarily anybody's fault, but this is what the importance of hiring a professional who can do it on your behalf. Because if you've got a client who's, let's say, if we're going to do a build or a renovation, or let's say it's an investor who wants to do an extension and a renovation, right? I bet less than half of them actually know the risks involved and what needs to be covered.
Yeah.
I agree. That blows my mind.
Yeah. But
because it's the Facebook post that follows it. I go, oh, I've had this and I've had that. How do you do this? And you think, oh my God.
To be honest, it's your first time investors that make those errors. Because they tend to be using their own money. And that's the difference is, and when I say their own money, is they're taking out a mortgage, or they're taking out a further mortgage on their residential property to buy an investment property.
So they're trying to do it on cheap, basically.
But it's when you get to commercial investment that you have the hoops you have to jump through.
God, yeah.
For the bank to give you the money.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's as daft as it sounds, for any funding that you have to get as a business, you'll have to provide board meeting minutes.
Yeah, everything.
Do you know
Absolutely.
What I mean? You have to provide all of that information.
Well, and that's because the bank, I'm not joking.
The bank are doing their due diligence, making sure that
a bank do their due diligence, but the bank also hire. So I'll use our new build site as an example. The bank do their due diligence, and they've got their legal team.
Yeah.
They then hire, at the time on this one, it was BNP Paribas.
Yeah.
They had their legal team doing due diligence on behalf of the bank, instructed as the property valuers. Then the bank also instructed Turner Townsend to then do the actual build.
Yeah.
So that they was doing due diligence. They had legal teams.
Yeah.
We had our own legal team doing our due. So when you look at it, that much level of due diligence, and they all asked, how much all contractors, all risk insurance have you got? When does it expire?
Yeah.
What's the policy details on it? Who is it with?
Yeah.
They ask the full ins and outs. So they know everything's covered before it's even covered. And I think you're right. When you jump to that level of kind of project funding, the commercial side of it, yes, then it's dictated to you. It is policed. That's brilliant. But on the other side of the fence, smaller projects, people don't know to ask the question, are you adequately insured?
They don't.
And not only that, I bet they don't even know what they're looking at.
No.
If the document, it's in face.
And that's the thing. And that's another reason why sort of I'm here, and, you know what insurance you've got, and you know why you've got it and how it responds, because you don't just want a piece of paper that shows that you've got insurance.
No.
I sort of explain to you at every step as to, this is what it does, this is how it protects you, and this is why you need it. And that's my recommendation. I always say, if I'm recommending something, it's because I see a gap where you have an exposure and you need to close that gap.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? Cyber insurance, for a construction company, a lot of people would say, we don't need that.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need that.
I'm out on
Can
site,
I just ask, right? Where's all your documentation?
It's on a portal on software that we pay for.
So
if someone pushing risk over there.
Yeah. So you're pushing risk over there. So I can guarantee in that terms and conditions of those providers, they accept no liability.
No liability. It's on a fag packing van.
So in the event that obviously you're at the moment doing a lot of branding,
Yeah.
awareness for create properties with new websites and things like that. And obviously, you'll pay somebody to host that website, and they're building it and things like that. Once it's been built and it's then obviously in your domain and you own that, you still pay someone to host it. But if someone were to get into your laptop where you can update content,
Information, yeah.
right? And they got hold of that access to the portal, changed the passwords, and changed your site to something that's completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
And I say this because it happened to a client.
Oh, it did.
The reputational damage that can cause.
Can't put a price on
Everybody will talk about it. Everybody, it's great advertising when people are talking about your business. But the reputational damage because you've gone viral because your professional building company's website was turned into a gambling site, a pornography site,
but,
spreading racism,
yeah,
things like that, terrorism, promoting the exact opposite of what you are.
Yeah.
The reputational damage from that, because people say, well, if you can get to the website, they've got our information. And if you do work for insurance companies, you'll have people's information and it doesn't have to be dates of birth, national insurance. It just has to be enough.
It's delicate information, isn't it?
There's some information. So names and addresses are all the black market need for identity theft and frauds and things like that.
Sorts, yeah.
So by protecting that information, you'll have to have an ICO registration.
That's right.
So you have that. So you sign up to them and you say, right, we adhere to the GDPR regulations, data protection and things like that, and we safeguard to your requirements this information. In the event of a breach, the ICO are quite happy to take your registration free every year, but then they'll say, that's your problem.
Ta-da.
Yeah.
It's in a bit.
So protecting your interest in a cyber policy, and this is where people think it'll never happen to me.
I bet it happens more than people know.
It does. There's a website that you can go on and you can Google it, and it was just active cyber attacks. That's all you have to Google, and it will show you there's over 64 million a day.
Jesus.
And it's not people sat at a keyboard as they think it is. It's bots. And they don't even know what they're attacking. They're just attacking an IP address, which is just your address on the internet, on the World Wide Web. How are you connecting? It's your door to the internet. They don't know, but all they do is just pinging. And what they do is they'll find access to one, and they're in. But what they do is they don't do anything at that point apart from this. They plant a seed,
dormant,
right? And that seed sits there for 6 months normally, because then what it does is it installs itself in every backup you do. Because you'll think, you get an incident that happens. Oh, it's all right. We've got a backup. We can back up from last month. It was there. We can back up from last quarter. It was there.
Oh.
And that's the thing. And
that just takes your level drop. No. That's deep.
But this is the thing. This is what I'm saying about the difference between advised and non-advised sales on insurance is we see those gaps and we offer a solution to plug that gap. But if the probably least likely one for a cyber attack or to be covered by a cyber policy is someone who still uses a paper ledger. Everybody else.
Well, legally today, you have to have some sort of digital accounting. So really,
everybody's exposed.
Well, on that note, well, listen, Simon, thanks very, very much. I think the biggest message that we've sent today is the importance of knowing that you're adequately insured.
Yeah.
Because there is two differences: the non-advised and advised. That for me, I don't know how non-advised even exists. That's dangerous. That is a dangerous.
Yeah,
it's a door to disaster for me.
It is because you're relying on the.
It's like buying a fake at a market, in a way.
In essence, because you're relying on somebody who knows very little. I can't say nothing. Somebody who knows very little about what cover is available and what they need for their job.
There's no peace of mind
There isn't.
in that
There
avenue
isn't.
at all.
And that's why we're here, and this is why we work for you. And I stress that as much. I work for you. The company
Yes.
I'm employed by is clear, but I work for you in respect of I'm there to answer your phone call.
Well, you give us peace of mind that we're adequately insured and have a job to do. So just for clarity, when we, start a new bigger project, for example, we'll quickly make the call and say, hey, what's our insurance looking like? We've got this on the horizon. We're probably looking at, T minus 3 months here.
This is it. Our discussion today on the 7th of January was what's in your pipeline for the next 12 months.
Yeah.
Because every site that you're currently working on is going to have an end date at some point.
Yeah.
So
you've got a transitional period of new to old.
Period. So what are you tendering for at the moment? Because that's what we're future to insure.
Yeah.
So it's being proactive rather than reactive, and I think that's the key. If you're reactive to insurance, you'll always be a step behind, and you'll be at the mercy of premiums. And insurers will always charge more when they're held with a gun to the head, effectively.
Well, yeah,
so
you
phone me and say, Simon, we're starting on a new site tomorrow. It's a £7 million contract site. I go to your insurer because I can't go anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I say, they've got a site on this. Right, no problem. We want an extra 12 grand. And you're like,
pardon?
And I'm like, but by doing what we're doing now, I mean, touch wood at the moment, we haven't got another large contract site. But if I knew now, I can go to a panel of insurers for your renewal and say, right, this is what we currently have, and this is insured and ongoing. This is the pipeline of a job that is just about to be signed for, but won't start for another 9 months.
Yeah.
But the contract site is going to be this. So I get a price for what we are now, but also what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And your current company might be slightly more now, but less in the future.
When it comes,
And that's the route we take, because we're not about what it costs. We're about how it protects you all the way through.
It's the adequate insurance. I think the biggest message for me from today's chat is, one, for both tradespeople and clients, is that just ensure that you've got the right level of insurance in place.
Yeah.
And making sure that you meet the right criteria.
Yeah.
And it's not worth it if not.
Don't let price be your guide.
No, absolutely not. Categorically.
Because price is simply something you pay. Value is what you will get from the policy and the person acting for you.
Well, listen, thanks very much for coming on. It's been a long time coming on.
It's a pleasure.
We got there in the end.
Yeah. We'll do another one soon.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We'll get you clear. Brilliant. Top man, cheers.
Wonderful.
Mate.
Thank you.